Well, hi everyone, and greetings from Northern Michigan. This is Bob the Science Guy, and I'm back today with another episode of my series on the pandemic profiteers with Dr. Dan Wilson of Debunk the Funk. How you doing, Dan?
Hey Bob, I'm doing good. How you doing?
Well, we've had a lot of fun with this series. So we've been working on this, for what, 2 months now, Dan? We've been kind of doing this on and off, and we're down to almost the end of it. We've got two more to go. Who would you like to talk about today?
So the last two are Rashid Buttar and Barbara Fisher. I think today we can go with Rashid Buttar.
All right. He sounds like an interesting one. He's a fellow physician. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he has to say. So let's cue up the music and get going. All right. So tell me about Rashid, Dr. Dan. What's going on with this gentleman?
So Rashid is a guy who does have a medical degree. Yeah, he has a real medical degree.
Yeah, he's
He's an
a
osteopathic.
DO. He's a
Yep,
DO, just
he's a
like me,
DO.
down in North Carolina.
Yep, but unlike a good DO, he has a history of anti-vaccine skepticism or just straight up denial. Let's be real. He's been most notable, I think, in the past for this whole story about this cheerleader named Desiree Jennings, or at least she worked for the Redskins cheerleaders.
The
Um,
Washington Redskins.
yes, the Washington Redskins
All
cheerleaders.
right. So she was
So,
she was an actual NFL cheerleader at one time.
yes, she was.
All
And
right.
so the story with her is that um, after she took a flu vaccine. So this story broke in 2009. She apparently took a flu vaccine and claimed to develop some neurological symptoms, claimed that they were consistent with dystonia. I
Okay.
don't know much about dystonia itself, but apparently it presents as something that, how do I describe it?
Dystonia and dystonic reactions are typically seen with antipsychotics, but they can be seen with other causes as well. And it's just a random movement of extremities or facial expressions that it's kind of like a tick, or
Okay.
or a larger, slower, random movement. It is indeed a serious problem, and it's very concerning to the patient that has it at the time, and those around them. But it's not a fatal condition or anything like that.
Interesting. So, in any case, she claimed that these symptoms were being caused by the flu vaccine.
Okay.
Now, important to note at the time, neurologists such as the skeptic Stephen Novella criticized this story. He said that the movements and symptoms that Miss Jennings displays on the public videos are not compatible with the diagnosis of dystonia or any other movement disorder. Jennings does not display the type of movements that are consistent with dystonia. Her speech and movement are, however, very suggestive of a psychogenic disorder. Sure enough, if you look at the VAERS report for her incident, which tracks her case, it says the admitting neurologist felt that there was a strong psychogenic component to the symptomology and made a final diagnosis of weakness. So, in any case, whatever you may think about this questionable situation that she's in, where Dr. Buttar comes in is he claims to have been able to successfully treat her a cream that he put on her that was supposed to chelate all the metals and toxins or whatever he says was in the vaccine that was causing her illness. And yeah, there's no reason to believe that that would help her. Apparently, the treatment did not appear to improve whatever was going on with her.
Well, chelation therapy is one of those things that you will see once in a while. It's not really well accepted by mainstream. The purpose of chelation therapy is to give British anti-Lewisite and other chelating agents that, as you say, bind up to heavy metals and toxins in the body. There's not a tremendous amount of peer review work done on it, and it's kind of viewed in the medical community as kind of a fringe practice. The North Carolina Medical Board basically said that what he was doing was giving people with cancer false hope, in that his treatments were so unproven and without any sort of medical backing, that it really was kind of playing in, from what I can read on this, kind of playing into the placebo effect. Now, as you see, he makes quite a bit of money doing this, $500,000 a year with his 6 employees. To his credit, he doesn't have any pandemic payroll protection loans listed. Whether or not that's the case, I don't know. So basically, you've got a doctor out here that is using some, well, I'm going to say questionable. I'm not going to say they're patent medicine, snake oil type things. I think that's a bit harsh, but I will say that they are a little questionable, as a more traditional physician. You can take that as you will. I've got 30 years doing this, so I think that my opinion is worth something. From what you're telling me, what he did was just rub some cream on her, and she apparently got better, but didn't really get better. There is such a thing as a placebo effect. So what else do we have with this gentleman? I noticed that he is a big believer in a relationship between 5G and COVID. I think we discussed that in our last episode. There is, of course, electromagnetic radiation does not cause infectious disease. It's just as simple as that. But he does bring up something that's rather interesting that I thought, and that was that he said that the flu vaccine can cause COVID. Is there any conceivable way that could happen? I mean, let's try and give him the benefit of the doubt here for a minute. Could the flu vaccine be contaminated with COVID?
No. There's no way.
And why
there's
not?
no way that. So the answer is just no. There's no way for SARS-CoV-2 to contaminate a flu vaccine because there are no cells in any flu vaccine in which SARS-CoV-2 could grow. Maybe if someone at the factory put a whole bunch of SARS-CoV-2 in there on purpose, maybe you could say that there's some SARS-CoV-2 in there, but it would then have to survive being in the vial and then the transportation and then getting injected into the person and successfully infect them. It's just wild. There's no real conceivable, realistic way that a flu vaccine could be contaminated with SARS-CoV-2 and cause COVID.
Well, the thing is,
wacky.
if you get a worker that sneezes in a batch of flu vaccine and is sick with COVID, first of all, these things are made in clean rooms. All right. Second of all, that's a gross contamination, and it's not like they don't have cameras.
The workers probably also wear masks to stop that from happening.
It's a clean room. Obviously, they're masked. They may even be in bunny suits for all I know. And the other thing, too, is if you had a contaminated batch of influenza vaccine, one of the things that we have is something called virus. And if we started seeing an increased number of COVID cases in people that had had a flu vaccine, one of the things that they would do is trace it back to what the lot of the flu vaccine was. And if it all came back to a single lot of flu vaccine, you'd be able to, you do contact tracing and then trace it back to the source. That's the way public health works. That's, the beauty of public health is that it can do that. So I think that's just, it's out there. Let's just say it's not.
It's buried.
It's not quite in the same zip code as reality. So
yeah, it's very much out there. I think it's just he got a little bump in popularity at the beginning of the pandemic, and I think he was trying to use that just to spread as much of an anti-vaccine idea as he could. There was a lot of fear around COVID, so he tried to pin that fear on the flu vaccine so people wouldn't get vaccinated with flu, and then they would also ignore this new infectious disease.
I'm really just taken aback with healthcare professionals and people in public safety that don't believe in public safety and public health. It just it mind blown. You know, if you're going to be in contact with the public and your entire career is built around you serving the public, what is the deal with you wearing a mask or getting a vaccination? I mean, seriously, you really need to rethink your life choices and your career choices if that is something that you really are having a problem with. If you don't want to take the time to wear a mask to protect your patients or protect your clients because you're in a public service profession, I really think that you might be in the wrong line of work.
Right. So with Rashid Buttar, he has a history. That story was in that story with Desiree Jennings was in 2009. He was an anti-vaxxer before that, and he's still an anti-vaxxer today. Um, Today, he still says things like children should not be vaccinated at all. Uh,
Why is
reason
that?
being, the reason he cites for that is that they don't have an immune system. So why should you vaccinate them?
Oh, that's
Interesting
interesting.
there to, yeah,
Well,
interesting
you
that
well, you have a newborn daughter. So,
uh,
how long are you and your wife planning on keeping her in a plastic bubble until you take her out to her first chickenpox party so she can
well,
get that good natural immunity?
I gotta consult Dr. Buttar on that. I don't know. We're just living in bubble world over here.
Yeah,
No, the idea that children don't have an immune system is just bonkers,
right.
way out there, along with his other claims. Um, yeah, children have immune systems. Even newborn babies have immune
Yes.
systems. Uh,
They have mothers.
even
They have
yes,
mothers. Of course, they've got immune systems. They get it from
yeah,
their mother. That's where babies come from, Dr. Patar. They come from other people that have immune systems that transfer antibodies to them. This is the Dr. Bob public service announcement right now. That's why the first 3 months of breast milk is essential to having healthy babies because it transfers a tremendous amount of immunity to it. So if you can do it, give them 3 months.
in addition to all that, this idea that babies don't have their own immune systems is also wrong. Babies are born with functional immune systems. Their
Yeah.
adaptive immunity is perfectly fine. Sure, they have their immune systems have to go through development and maturation stages, but it's fully functional. You can expose
Yeah.
it to an antigen and it'll react and
Yep.
create memory. It's perfectly capable of doing that. So, yeah, please don't forego vaccination of your children, even when they're newborns, because there's a reason we vaccinate children when we do. It's because we want to give them protection when they're most vulnerable. Yeah,
I agree.
Uttar is just completely wrong.
Yeah. And, this is another example, and we've seen that. We've seen people using their last name to try and give them a veil of credibility. We've seen people use doctor, uh, whether or not that's appropriate um, to give them a veil of credibility. The problem is we have credentials, we have a lot of training in this. And one of the things that our patients and our viewers rely on is that we actually have formal training in this and we probably know what we're talking about. So if we take advantage of that trust that the viewer has in our opinion and put out derp, our derp sounds a lot more reasonable to people than somebody that lives in their mom's basement and spends their entire time doing independent research on YouTube. All right. So if we say derp, it's a lot more dangerous than somebody like that saying derp. And that is one of the problems that I run into with physicians that go out here and use their title to put out information like this. It's just one of those things that rubs me wrong.
Well, I know what else will rub you the wrong way. Get a
Oh
load of how
dear.
much money he makes doing stuff like this. So During the pandemic, Buttar has led mask-free conferences and healing retreats. For one such event, his website claims that 1,200 people could attend, equivalent to ticket sales of up to $538,000, based on a sale of a single ticket at $450. Also, he held retreats in 2020 in Mexico titled, well, I'm not going to name the title, but the prices for this retreat ranged from $7,550 for a single casitas to $15,360 for a double bungalow, and villa prices available on request, overall translating to revenues of up to $614,400.
Not bad for a
No.
part-time weekend job. What is he making the point about no masks being here for? He's appealing to a certain group of people that will wear a mask if it's convenient to them, but they won't wear a mask if it's convenient to the people around them or safe for the people around them, because they don't care. All right.
Right.
They don't care about anybody but themselves. And if you market these people, one of the things that you would market is I would use the word freedom a lot. I would use a word government control a lot. We've got a freedom conference outside of government control, and you can opt out of mainstream and come join us and get healed. He even got the natural healing in there too. These guys know what they're doing. They definitely know what they're doing, and that makes it more despicable, in my opinion, because they know what they're doing, and they know what they're doing is wrong. Because these guys went to med school, all right? This guy went to med school, and he knows what he's doing is wrong. Yet, he's putting his own profits ahead of the health of his patients. And I think that's one of the things the North Carolina Medical Board had to say about him. So let's go ahead and close this one out. We'll take a little break and get over to Barbara Fisher. So this is Bob the Science Guy signing out from Northern Michigan with Dr. Dan Wilson from Debunk the Funk. Go over and check out his channel. He's even more academic than I am. So see you next time, guys.
Mama, please make them hear me, or I can't teach them anymore. This rabbit hole's too deep for me. Feel my brain getting real sore. Bob the Science Guy. Bob the Science Guy.